Hello, everyone. Welcome to the OCX Webinar Week. My name is Ludmila, and I'm happy to have you all with us. This week, we're celebrating the lead up to OCX 26, our flagship event happening in Brussels in April 26. It's the place where the open collaboration community meets to connect, learn, and exchange ideas. If you haven't registered yet, you can find the link in the chat, and we'd love to see you there in person. Now, I would like to give the floor to my colleague Perry, who will briefly present the sponsorship opportunities at OCX. Perry, you have the floor.
Thank you for the introduction, Ludmila. Hello, everyone. We just want to, as Ludmila mentioned, to take a few minutes to talk quickly about how your organization can get involved with OCX 2026. We have several sponsorship options available, and these options will provide brand recognition, reaching over 600 professionals and many industries within the open source community. Through our 5 co-located events, you and your organization will have the opportunity to meet new and existing members of the community, including developers, decision makers, and ecosystem leaders. We'll have several social activities where your team will have the opportunity to enhance existing and build new relationships with other organizations shaping the future of open source technologies. Presently, we have 5 levels of sponsorship, as well as several add-ons. We can also do a customized sponsorship based on budget and needs of your organization. Each sponsor will benefit from visibility on-site, online, and across our communication channels leading up to and during the event. Also, we have sponsorship levels that include both booth and speaking opportunities, some just a booth, as well as some without a booth. And we have higher level sponsorships where we actually have additional exposure by sponsoring a specific co-located event for targeting visibility in their field at no extra cost. I'd be happy to discuss sponsorship opportunities with your organization, so please do share this opportunity with your marketing teams. And post this webinar, I believe Ludmila will provide an email address where you can reach out to the events team, and we'd be happy to meet and discuss the opportunities in more detail. Thank you for your time, and do enjoy the remainder of the webinar.
Thank you so much, Perry. So now we go to the webinar. Today, we are very happy that we are joined with Wayne Beaton and Boris Baldassari. They will be talking about running a successful open source project and about open source best practices. So the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've been looking forward to OCX mostly because I really prefer to present in front of people and sort of benefit from seeing your responses to the discussion. This is going to be good, I hope, for you, but again, this will be so much better in person, and again, really looking forward to OCX. My name is Wayne Beaton. I'm the Director of Open Source Projects here at the Eclipse Foundation. I am actually a software developer by training, and frankly, I try to sneak in a little bit of it whenever I get a chance, but mostly I spend my time helping our open source projects and our committers be successful. And we have a small team that works with the community to help projects realize their goals. I do operate in a kind of quasi-legal context too. I kind of try to help people navigate legal questions. I am not a lawyer. I have no formal legal training. Anything I say should never be considered legal advice. I guess I should finish that by saying, if you do require legal advice, you really need to get it from your own lawyer. I should make some notes that much of this presentation I collaborated with my good friend Gunnar Weichenknecht with it, and so he gets a great deal of the credit for some of the material in here. before you can talk about running a successful open source project, you really need to have a clear definition of success. And I will state expressively right now, of course, I am basing my definition of success on what the Eclipse Foundation describes as success. So, this presentation obviously has a clear bias towards our particular definition of success. But the idea here is I'm hoping that I will be able to show you some practices and some things that you should consider when you are creating your own definition of success. And of course, if you bring your project to the Eclipse Foundation, or if you're operating an open source project at the Eclipse Foundation, the things I'm talking about today are the kinds of things we want you to be thinking about. For me personally, an open source project is successful when people find the software useful and actually use it. When developers contribute, when a community grows around the project, and of course, when I get some personal enjoyment from working on it. There is absolutely a case, and there's certainly an awful lot of folks who do open source because their boss told them to, and that's cool too. I live in a world that's a little bit special, in that I have the great benefit of being able to work on open source projects just to get enjoyment. Of course, I also work on things because I need to. But again, there's lots of reasons why you would be involved in an open source project, and then of course, by extension, how you would define your own version of success. I'll take a minute just to back up a little bit. When I say open source, I tend to, and the rest of the world, we all tend to conflate the terms open source and open collaboration. Open source is a licensing model. If you go to the OSI definition, there's 10 definitions, and it's all really to do about how content is licensed, made available to the community. Open collaboration is about how we produce software. So generally, though, certainly in the circles that I hang out in, and the people that I work with, open source tends to mean open collaboration too. Again, the Eclipse Foundation is specifically focused on building communities and ecosystems around vendor-neutral open source through open collaboration. So let's get to it. The first thing that I would suggest for being successful is to be transparent. This is pretty simple to understand. Make it so that the community can watch and understand what you're doing. Use publicly accessible source code repository that's easy to find. Actually work directly in that public Git repository. One of the things that we find this every once in a while where an organization is doing some open source. They work on things quietly, privately, within their own corporate infrastructure, and then every once in a while they push it out to the open source project. In fact, that's the way I tend to think of that is they're using the open source project to publish their work, not to invite actual collaboration. If you really care about people being able to use your software, being able to extend your software, if you really care about developing an ecosystem, you really need to work directly daily, pushing regular updates into your public repository where people can find them. And this would include half-baked ideas. There's a wonderful branching mechanism in Git that allows you to go off on a tangent, work in the public, make half implementations or part implementations and evolve them to something. But again, it's possible with all this wonderful technology we have today, it's absolutely possible to do work in a completely public way, even without, again, pushing incomplete features and making them available. Of course, other ways to be transparent is to use a public issue tracker, be very explicit about your release plans, and make your releases easy to find, capture meeting minutes, you have conversations with your colleagues, you make decisions. If you're not making those decisions in a public forum, then at least you should be capturing minutes about those decisions so that people can be aware of them as soon as possible, and again, adjust their own plans. Bearing in mind that I'm hoping that your definition of success means that you have adopters. Open is a little bit harder for people to understand. Open is different from transparency. Transparent basically means you're showing people what you're doing. Open means that you're inviting them to participate. In an open collaboration, you would be open to new ideas, open to participation. The idea is that the rules for your open source project should be the same for everybody, regardless of who they work for. It's not enough just to accept patches. You would need to be open to new ideas. In short, you would need to, to be open, you really need to give up any notion of absolute control. Now, this is not to say that you have no control or you're absolutely, giving up every measure of control. You have control in an open source project by participating, allowing others to show up and maybe nudge the project in directions that maybe you hadn't anticipated. Expand the scope of the work possibly. Solve problems that you may not have anticipated. Generally, making a project more diverse by having a more diverse set of interests working on the project will improve the ability of the project to continue and improve the resilience of the project. Please, 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 if somebody shows up with willingness and enthusiasm to participate in your project, help them, encourage them. Privileges on your open source project should be earned through sustained public contribution, not granted by some corporate affiliation. The more that one contributes, the more responsibility and influence they earn. The idea is a steady flow of contributions from outside of your project team is a sure sign of success for your open source project. Engage with the community to attract that contribution. Grow the community diversity by turning your contributors into committers. Structure your project governance such that responsibilities of a maintainer or a committer are earned by demonstrating a sustained pattern of making high quality contributions, exercising good technical judgment, and community engagement. Leaders within an open source project should have only as much power as the maintainers grant them. Technical leaders should earn the confidence of the project team and the broader community through sustained pattern of contribution and leadership. Leaders should facilitate, mediate, and ensure the project adheres to good open source practices. Formalized voting. We do this at the Eclipse Foundation. We have a very well-defined means by which people can be added to the project through a vote of the existing project team. Having a standard practice of being very public about how you add people to your project is, again, a great way to demonstrate to the community that you are indeed open and transparent and operating along the lines of encouraging contribution. But it also provides a template for others to follow, right? So they say, this person was made a maintainer because they did this, this, and this, and here's the public record of how they were granted more privileges. That gives a roadmap for how others can do it. Be vendor neutral. In order to be truly open, people need to feel welcome to contribute. This is easier when the project is not owned by any particular corporate interest. An open source foundation is a great way to do this. Vendor neutral project is not dominated by any particular organization. Privileges granted based on contributions of the individual, not affiliation or specific hiring practices of an organization. If you truly operate, if you operate it open, transparently, and cultivate this culture of contribution, you should automatically be vendor neutral. At least in part, who holds the keys is important too. If your organization holds the keys and gets to decide what happens with the project's resources, vendor neutrality is hard, right? Again, this is a great opportunity and sort of self-serving thing for me to say, but a great opportunity for an open source foundation. Establish rules for participating in your project. Make sure that being employed by any particular organization isn't one of those rules. We talk an awful lot about a level playing field, and this kind of just all plays to the same thing I've been talking about. Doesn't necessarily mean that you need to let just anybody join the project, but rather that you need to please ensure that the same set of rules are applied to everybody equally, right? So somebody showing up with a contribution that is absolutely nothing to do with the project, maybe lacks tests, is incorrect, doesn't mean you necessarily have to accept it, doesn't mean that you have to fall all over yourself helping that individual. If somebody is showing up and trying really hard and producing good content, you really want to try and accept them and bring them into the project. Again, the whole idea is to grow the diversity, grow the resilience of the project. One thing that it feels kind of obvious, but it's not obvious to everybody, is make sure that your project code is always buildable. Even if you're working on part features and maybe something's half baked, making it so that people can actually build it and run it and test it and then actually contribute it is just a massive and important factor. Sorry, my phone is bothering me here. All right, and we're back. Pardon me. So anyway, and reward contribution, try to lower the barriers. We talk about a level playing field. Everybody gets to come onto the field. Only the people who are participating, only the people who are making good contributions. You don't have to let everybody, you don't have to accept everybody's work, but kind of give everybody an even chance. Establish guides and conventions. Help your community understand how to actually interact with you. Be sure to document your project's coding guidelines, formats, expectations with regards to test coverage, your development methodology, channels to connect with, other important information for potential contributors. Capture all of this information and make it as easy as possible to find by potential contributors. Basically set your contributors up for success. It's good practice to include a contribution guide directly in the root of your Git repository. Remember that your Git repository can be cloned and then cloned again, and somebody may get it indirectly. Make it so it's as easy as possible for them to find their way back to you. Connect with your user community. The user community is that group of people who use the products of your open source project. They may not actually wind up contributing anything directly to your project, but they will, the popularity of your project will drag adopters, and it will actually seed an environment where people will be able to, some people will be able to contribute back. The adopter community are those people who are incorporating your open source project content into their projects. They are probably your best bet for contributors. Really working to make the adopter community successful is, again, a great way to grow the resources that you have available for your project. And then, of course, continuously connect with your own development community. This would be your team of committers and maintainers and contributors. Of course, to do this, you need to actually provide community channels. And again, this is super easy, right? We have GitHub has issue trackers. GitLab has an issue tracker. That's a great way to provide a channel for your community to communicate with you. Use the discussion forums. Use mailing lists. Building channels is hard. If channels already exist, hang out where your community hangs out. Trying to change where a community lives and communicates is a hard task. Try to answer questions. Be helpful. Be kind. Build critical mass. Again, you've been successful when your community starts taking care of itself. Your open source project is successful when people that you don't know are answering questions before you even get a chance to see them. Manage your brand. Your project's name is its identity. Project logo is part of its identity. Be mindful of how you allow people to use those brands. Naming is hard. We try really hard at the Eclipse Foundation to make sure that project names are not infringing on trademarks that are held by others, and that if we can, in the case of a distinctive name, we try to make sure that we can actually register it if we have to, if we decide to. A lot of our projects have distinctive names. There's some subtlety here in terms of what you can register and not register, but again, establish some usage guidelines. How should people be using your trademark? One of the things we are careful about is Eclipse project names shouldn't be used in other people's products. That's a great way to confuse ownership of a brand. Manage intellectual property. This is important. There's a lot more to this than I can reasonably cover in just a few minutes. I should repeat that I am not a lawyer. Nothing I say should be considered legal advice. Manage your intellectual property. This takes a number of different forms. Your open source project's code will most likely, hopefully, contain contributions from a great variety of people. Do contributors own their own contributions, or will you require that they assign ownership of the content to some other entity? Should make a note here that when I say some other entity, your open source project is probably not a legal entity. So it could not be a holder of a copyright, for example. Keep track of who owns what. Take steps to ensure that contributions are received under the project license, or that the license that you receive contributions are under, or you receive contributions in a manner that is consistent with the project license. Some of this stuff is hard. We actually have a dedicated team that helps our projects take care of this. Manage copyright. Copyright is literally the right to copy and control. There's a lot of subtlety, but for all practical purposes, copyright is the same as ownership. This varies quite a lot by jurisdiction. This can be challenging to manage. Copyright is initially vested in the author of the work, or maybe transferred to another party through contracts. Probably, again, this varies by jurisdiction, so there's some subtlety and complications here. Generally, copyright is assigned at the moment of creation. The author, or possibly their employer, depending on the employment status, is the copyright holder. It's implied. Copyright is implied in some jurisdictions, like the United States. It's explicit in others through an employment agreement. If you take somebody else's work and change it, your changes are your intellectual property, and you are the copyright holder of those changes, but it doesn't change the original copyright holder's ownership of their contributions. So if you take somebody else's work and modify it, they still own their copyright, you own yours, again, unless there's some agreement in place to change that. Again, this varies by jurisdiction, and again, remember, your open source project is not a legal entity, most likely. So it can't be a copyright holder. Pick an OSI approved open source license for your project. Don't create your own custom license. This will just add legal hurdles for anybody who wants to use your code. The amount of effort that we spend trying to understand custom licenses and vanity licenses is much more than I care to admit. There is a lot of complexity in kind of dealing with how licenses combine, and then kind of when you have some new custom license, it just makes an awful lot of work for everybody. Ensure that the license that you're picking, that you pick for your project, is consistent with any third-party content you're using. We're actually working with a team right now who is using some content that is under a license that is fundamentally incompatible with their project license. It's most likely the case that they're going to have to find another solution. We're still working with them. We'll see if we can figure out how to make it work. We're pretty sure it doesn't. If I didn't say this enough earlier, please don't create your own custom license. Just don't. Pick a license that aligns with your goals. Now, this is extremely oversimplified. Choose your license with care. Generally, open source licenses fall into 3 different categories: permissive, a weak copyleft, and a strong copyleft. Again, I've made a very simplified table of the differences here. There's been some attempts to kind of you come up with broader categories. You know, it's upwards of, I think, 20 different things that are kind of different about the different licenses. Permissive basically means you can do all kinds of things with it. Usually it comes down to you need to make sure that you attribute the original authors, make sure that the original authors get credit for their work. Weak copyleft, and copyleft is basically if you make modifications to the content, you have to make those modifications available under similar licensing terms generally, and then of course they vary by the definition of modifying. Again, a lot of subtlety here. Spend time working with people who understand this sort of stuff when it comes time to pick a license, and really pay attention to how the license of your content will interact with other people's. Track your dependencies. Now, I tend to think about this primarily in an intellectual property context. Your project most likely leverages work created by others. We refer to this as third-party content. Take care to ensure that you understand what content you're actually using. This is becoming much more important in other contexts, in a broader context. Understanding what software you're using and what version, and know where it comes from. We need to make sure that the licenses of that content is consistent with the project license, and then the license of the content that you're referencing is consistent with the other content that it's referencing. This all has an effect on adopters and the ability for others to actually use and participate in your project. Bear in mind that license compatibility doesn't always flow in both directions. Content under one license may leverage content under another license. Licenses apply to the entire libraries or files. There's lots of different ways that these licenses can interact with each other, and kind of understanding what you have is the first step. Understanding the licenses of all those and trying to understand what works with what is again, fairly time-consuming process. No, I get this question a lot, is like, how deep do the dependencies go? And ultimately it's like all the way down to the platform is how we think of it. Like, your operating system is your platform, or your application server is your platform. Right? If you have dependencies that have dependencies that have dependencies, all of those things are inflicted on your adopters. Your adopters have to take all of that content and incorporate it into their products. So a license compatibility 3 layers down is still a license incompatibility. Your software may leverage hundreds or even thousands of libraries. This is a huge, daunting task, something you really need to put effort into. I was going to, just as an aside, the JSON license, we run into this every once in a while. It has this clause that says software shall be used for good and not evil, which sounds really funny. Unfortunately, good and evil are legally ambiguous. They constitute a field of use restriction, and so this license is not open source. A lot of organizations, when they see this license, it's a full stop. Again, it's funny. To the best of my knowledge, the author of this license created it as a subversive act. I respect that, but regrettably, we can't use his stuff. Express copyright and license in context. So here I have just an example of a licensed file header. Got a copyright statement right at the top. Have a English-like expression of the license. But one of the things that we make all of our Eclipse projects do is include an SPDX license identifier. This makes the license as unambiguous as we're aware it can be. The nice thing about the SPDX license identifiers is you can actually put expressions in there, and those expressions are, again, pretty clear what it means, or is got a specific meaning and has a very specific meaning. These are all these license identifiers are part of a SPDX effort. We leverage their identifiers. We leverage some bits of their work as well at the foundation. I personally recommend that you investigate reuse.software. It is an effort to enable you to apply license information to everything in your project. So there are file types, JSON files, for example, or even image files. Although image files, they have metadata. The sort of reuse provides a means by which you can specify license information for absolutely everything in your file, in your repository, and it has tools to help you check. It's a great effort, and again, I recommend it. The projects that I work on all use it. A lot of our projects do use it as well. Contribution agreements are something you need to think about. If you are accepting contributions from others, you need to make sure that you have clear rights. They have to make sure they have the necessary rights to make the contribution, and that you understand the rights that they are assigning to you. It is very common to see the Developer Certificate of Origin, the DCO, used. We wrap the DCO in something we call the Eclipse Contributor Agreement. It's also common for projects to have a Contributor License Agreement, or a CLA. One of the primary differences is the DCO is an expression of, I own this content, I can make it available under the license of the project. A CLA tends to have some means of assigning ownership or equivalent to ownership to content that you contribute to the project. So anyway, again, fundamental differences. I'm not a lawyer. If you want more information about this, I can certainly try and help. But again, this is kind of, if you want legal advice, get it from your own lawyer. But again, make sure that you consider the legal implications of accepting contributions from others. Care about vulnerabilities. I'm surprised. I'm continuously shocked by the open source projects I stumble upon who basically publicly state that they don't care about vulnerabilities. And I guess that's a way of doing things. Ultimately, if you care about adopters and you want people actually using your software, you really do need to care about vulnerabilities. You need to make sure that your builds are as secure as possible. You need to make sure that the software repositories that you're pulling content from are secure. The number of hacks that have occurred where somebody has changed something in a software repository and affected others is, there's so many options. Great, have a private security mailing list, or channels where security related topics can be discussed semi-privately or privately. We have channels that we provide for private conversation regarding security, but our requirement is that at some point you disclose, right? So having a disclosure policy is important too. When you're working on a vulnerability or a solution to a vulnerability, at some point you need to tell people. And do you tell people when if the vulnerability isn't quite resolved but it's taking a long time? Do you disclose it anyway? These are things you should probably discuss in advance before it becomes something you have to actually worry about in the moment. Generate SBOMs. So all of my talk about intellectual property, all of the talk, the brief talk I gave, or the mention I gave to vulnerability management, SBOMs are one wonderful way to make sure that you understand your dependencies, understand if there's license implications, understand if a vulnerability is detected in some component, understand if that vulnerability affects you. SBOMs are great for that sort of thing. That, and there's some legislation bouncing around that requires it for products. One of the things that I struggle with is SBOMs for a component, a jar file or an NPM module. Does SBOMs mean anything at that level? And they do. You can specify certainly project metadata in an SBOM, but one of the things that we really strongly recommend to people is that they provide good metadata in their components, so that people incorporating your component into their products can access that metadata and use that to build their SBOMs for their own products, right? So this is kind of a good citizen of the world kind of thing. If your the software you're delivering has an ability to provide good metadata, do so. In the Java context, we have Maven POM files where you can specify license information, location of the repository, version information, obviously, all kinds of information. Our strong recommendation is that you specify all of that. And finally, and I mentioned this a couple of times, move your project to an open source foundation. There's a lot of things you need to think about. We think about them, and we provide services to help you do these things. It's a lot of work to do by yourself. I can't say that we do everything for you, but we provide tools where the Eclipse Foundation will work with you to make sure that you're able to generate SBOMs, make sure we have an intellectual property due diligence process. We have a security team that will help you with that. We have marketing resources. We have a governance structure, right? All of these things will help you be successful in open source. Find a foundation that aligns with your goals and go there. And with that, the formal part of my presentation is done, and I am eager to hear if anybody has any questions, criticisms. Hecklers are welcome. Anyone? Is this thing on?
All right. Otherwise, we can go through all the questions together at the end. But if you have a question now, we can. Let's see. There is no questions in the. Thank you so much for your presentation, Wayne. Now I will. Let's see if someone is asking. No. All right. So I will invite to the stage to Boris so he can. Thank you so much, Wayne.
Wayne, could you stop your screen sharing, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the floor is all yours. Thank you so much.
Okay, do you see my screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Good. So, hello, good people. Thank you for coming to this session. We'll talk about open source best practices, especially at the Eclipse Foundation, and see examples of how they are implemented by the Eclipse projects. I'm Boris Baldassari from Eclipse Foundation Europe, and I work with Wayne, so in the EMO team. Basically, we as Wayne said, we take care of onboarding projects and helping them working in the open and with good governance and so on. So what do we call best practices? And that's a very tough question, a very good one. And obviously we won't be comprehensive here, but there are some good practices that you can recognize when you go to a project and you're looking for some information and you find it very quickly. So in that case, there are some good practices that have been set up, and you can actually learn a lot when you go to project and see what works and what doesn't work for you as a user or as a contributor. Basically, in this presentation, we'll cover a number of areas. From community building, how to attract contributors, and provide a safe and friendly environment. We'll talk about governance and how to set up a level playing field that works for everybody, and why we would do that. Also, development tools and methods, talking about automation that you can set up, and a few more miscellaneous best practices. Obviously, one of the best practices that you can apply to your open source project if you want to build your community, and I bet you want to build your community because that's one of the reasons to have an open source project is to share the cost of development and maintenance. So you want to have people with you helping develop and helping answer to questions and do some work with you. You also want users, right? Otherwise, you would not be sharing your work. So one evident thing is you should be nice and supportive and be welcoming people. And in practice, that means setting up the right communication means, so people don't have to search for hours to find a way to actually get to you. So a place where people can ask questions and they can safely ask questions. So maybe doing some moderation from time to time, because sometimes people are angry and we all make mistakes. So yeah, moderating the discussions is a good idea. And there are many ways to establish communication with your users, contributors, and so on. You can use GitHub discussions. You can use GitHub or GitLab issues, which is a way to discuss too. You also have the Eclipse mailing lists that come with every Eclipse project. Or you can set up some metrics channels. The Eclipse Foundation provides a metrics server, and you can just ask for a channel on our metrics server. Or you can use Slack or whatever tool that people can use. So you really have to make sure that people can actually use the communication tool that you provide. Because if you set up a tool for communication that people cannot join, yes, you're stuck. Also, communicating about your project is a really good idea because people know what's going on, what will be in the next release, and they communicating means also giving visibility to your project. So if people want, so follow you on LinkedIn or whatever, and you share some news from time to time, then people will see the project name popping up here and there. And that's also how you increase the visibility and get more users and attention. There are some services at the Eclipse Foundation that you can use for that. And we strongly encourage you to have a website and do some communication that really helps attracting users, attracting contributors. One important thing is to manage contributions diligently. When people take time to propose a feature, send a merge request or pull request, or submit a question, an issue, whatever. If they have to wait for weeks before getting an answer or a review on their PR, that doesn't work for many reasons. One of them is they have this need now, and maybe in 2 or 3 weeks' time, they will have switched to something else. And it's a lot easier for everybody, including you, to treat PRs and MRs as they come. The soonest, the best. Because if someone submit the PR and in the next days you start discussing with the person and starting the review, it's still hot in their head. They worked on it a couple of days ago, so questions are easily answered, and that goes fast. And that's how you actually get to a quick answer, a merge, probably, or closing the issue with a good answer. And it empowers people. So if people feels like when they do something, you listen and it has some impact, well, they will contribute more, and that's also how you get more contributors. And a good practice that we've seen in quite a few projects, not all, but quite a few projects, especially if you have, say, more than one contributor, is to promote your contributors. So having something like Contributor of the Month or thank you, person X for contributing 10 commits, stuff like that, and promoting them on various media, that helps a lot. It's good for their reputation. It empowers them, gives them this feeling of importance that we all need, right? And you also promote your project when you do that, because when you promote the committer on these projects, people also read the name of your projects, and they see that you're nice, so that might give them some ideas to come and contribute. There are, again, a few means to do that. We've seen that occurring on Eclipse communication channels, projects, websites, LinkedIn, Mastodon, whatever. a few examples. So I took two examples with using different tools. One of them is the GitHub discussions that is used by Eclipse and Chaos with a friendly message, as we can see, and that's very welcoming. So pay attention to the discussion. So because it's not good if someone comes to the discussion forum and sees that nothing has been answered for over the last 6 months. That's not good. But if you have a nice and friendly message and you answer swiftly to the questions, that creates some momentum, and people are just happy to get their answers quickly. And maybe if you answer quickly, they will use your tool or maybe contribute. Same thing with Matrix. So Matrix is really instant messaging. You can, so if you have an Eclipse project, you can ask for a channel dedicated to your Eclipse project. And that's a very nice and interactive way of discussing with people. Some questions people will ask in an issue, say a very specific use case that requires quite some explanation. But some questions you just want to ask them in a Matrix channel, and you get the answer after a couple of hours or the next day. And if needed, the maintainer will tell you to, well, that's a good use case, that's a good idea, we didn't think about that, please submit an issue. So that's really a very easy entry point for newcomers, and people feel listened to doing that. So that's great. Another really good example is the Eclipse Tractus-X project. So that's a very big and very active project. And they have, more than 150 something like contributors over the last 2 years. So yeah, with many different organizations. And they've put a lot of attention into the documentation, getting started, and welcoming people. That is the GitHub GitHub organization page. So you can actually, so when you have an Eclipse project that is on GitHub, you can set up a Markdown file on the main page of the organization. And if you do it like this, so nice logo, welcome, about us, the vision, and so this README is quite long, and actually just going to this organization, you know the vision, you know what the project is about, you know how you have links to the contributing guidelines, and basically you have all the information to start something with the project. Either as a user, a contributor, or whatever, you have everything you need here. So that's in a nutshell. That's really easy for people to just come here, have the main information, and then go dig into contributing guidelines or whatever they want to do. This one is a special success. Also, when we talk about communication, these are a few examples. On the left of the slide, we have a few case studies. That's for Eclipse Basics, and that's for Adoption Temurin. And these are very good ways to promote your projects with a quite consistent article about how to use the product, the software. So the Eclipse Foundation can help with that. Please submit an issue in our tracker, and we can help with that. On the right, you see the the Eclipse SDV, Eclipse Software Defined Vehicle website with a timeline of upcoming events. And that's really nice because if you're interested in that working group, then you know where to go or where to look at for what's coming up. And you also have right under some news. So on the front page, you really have all the up-to-date information about the working group. And that's really nice when you're a user or you want to contribute or whatever, to come to a place and you see it's dynamic and there is stuff happening, and you know where to go to get more information and be involved. A few numbers about how Eclipse projects behave or manage that. So one interesting metric is the number of days a review stay open. The median across all Eclipse projects is 12 days. So that means that half of Eclipse projects have a review open time less than 12 days, and half of the other half of Eclipse projects have a review time, open time, which is more than 12 days. Shows your side. So you probably want to make sure that reviews as an average are done under 12 days if you want to be on the right side. It should be noted that, yes, of course, some reviews take more time than others. So if you manage the quick reviews quickly, so say in a few days, your median and your average will obviously decrease. And yes, of course, there are some reviews that are big or that are complex, and you want to take more time. But yeah, once again, the lower the better, especially for to attract new contributors. Same thing for the issues. So the number of days that issues stay open. The median time is 32 days. So which means once again, that half of Eclipse projects have an average open time for issues under 32 days, and the other half has an average open time for issues more than 32 days. The thing is, in every repository, there are some issues that have been sitting there for years. There might be good reasons for that. Sometimes it's just to keep the information, or because we cannot reproduce it and stuff like that. As a good practice, it's recommended to not keep issues open for too many years. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, but your mileage may vary. But basically, if you can close the issues swiftly, I mean, answer, of course, the questions, and then try to mark a resolution, fixed, won't fix, or whatever the resolution. That's good for everybody. People do not have to wait for months to get an answer, especially if the answer is, well, we won't do that. And it also shows to newcomers that, well, yes, you're managing the issues, and if they ask something, there is someone at the other end listening and trying to answer and yeah, solve the issue. Talking about how to promote the contributors, these are a few examples from Adoption on the left and from the Eclipse ID working group on the right. So it's the community star. So on the right for Eclipse ID, every month or every now and then, you have this specific contributor who has a huge track of great contribution, and it's promoted on LinkedIn, on a number of media, and that's really nice. I mean, when you see your name coming up on the various media as a recognition of the work that you've put into the project, I mean, you know why you've been working on this, and it helps, gives you better reputation and visibility, and it also, once again, promote the project itself. Now, talking about governance. Governance is really about making people feel like they belong to the community, and they can take a role in the community. So answering questions, participating, contributing, or even participating to the roadmap, stuff like that. One good thing to do is to set up regular open community meetings. So depends on the size of your community, of course. That can be every month. That can be every week if you have very active projects. So yeah, every week is a lot of work, but every month is nice. So you should really announce the meeting, make it easy for people to join and participate, and openly discuss, just about anything about the project. So architecture, features, methods, tools, listening to people. So it's not just about you telling to others what the project is doing. So that's an important part, but it's also about listening to people, what they could improve, questions they have, use cases they bring. Taking minutes is recommended, and publishing them is recommended, and that really makes people, feeling like they are part of the community. That helps a lot. Developing in the open, as Wayne was saying, within the community repository is, I would almost say, mandatory practice, because if people see some synchronization from time to time, well, you just cannot work this way. So you're basically preventing people from contributing to the projects, and it's not what we call open. I mean, just giving access to the source code. We know that free, lib, open source software is a lot more than that. You definitely should foster and promote diversity for the good of your projects. Well, so that means from newcomers. So that means contributor for whatever country, gender, whatever, and especially from your competitors, actually. Why? Because for a few reasons. Your competitors usually work in the same domain, and they have some expertise, and they can bring some really bright ideas. They can bring some resources, and they can do some work for you. And so it's quite established that at the Eclipse Foundation, we work on some common blocks, and that your company will do whatever they want above that. But it's really above sharing the cost. And, well, yeah, you need your competitors to do that. Another good reason to promote, to have your competitors or a very diverse community is the sustainability of the projects. Projects that have been sustainable for a long time, so projects that are really sustainable, have many, many different organizations contributing to them. Of course, an organization can switch priorities or have financial problems or decide on a different strategy, whatever. Or the guys working there might just leave the company. Having multiple organizations working on a project is key for a sustainable project on the long term. And consequence of everything else, avoid bottlenecks. So there should be no one, so no individual or organization being the gatekeeper of peers or whatever. You really need to have people from different communities, organizations, and so on, managing the projects, being able to review and accept peers, basically for the same reasons as above. And it's true for the governance, it's true for the tools and the process. If some organization at some point does not have the bandwidth or changes priorities, or whatever the reason, and they cannot process the incoming peers, issues, and so on, then the project is effectively stuck. You really don't want that, and you also want to be able to go on holiday and do something else from time to time and let other people manage that. So for the fluidity and the vendor neutrality, really avoid bottlenecks. Maybe an individual, an organization, a tool, whatever. Some examples of projects having open meetings. So actually quite a few projects have open meetings. That's great. Eclipse and Chaos is one of them. And when you come to their GitHub, so that's a repository, you just see the list of the meetings that have already passed, links to the minutes, link to the documentation. You even have a link to join the Slack, the Eclipse and Chaos Slack workspace. So when you come to this project and you want to know more about the community and so on, you have everything you need in there. Great. I told you about Eclipse Tractus-X and how good they do on the user-facing documentation. This is I highly recommend anybody to just have a look at this website, at their website. Everything is described. So it's how to contribute, why they do things, so how they do things and why they do things this way. It explains the governance, the criteria, the tests. Everything is thoroughly described. And well, when you have gone through all of this, you know exactly how they work and you know how you can work with them. Now coming to the collaboration tool, working on the roadmap, on elaborating ideas and stuff like that. There are quite a few tools that you can use. As an example, you have GitHub projects, so which is a feature of GitHub that goes across repositories. So it's a bit weird sometimes, at least to me, how this works. But this allows you and the community to really have a list of things to do and work in Kanban style, like for the Tractus-X screenshot on the left. Or having lists with priorities, so everybody know what you will be working on in the upcoming sprint, or where are things. So that's on the left, that's for the website. If people want to pick up a task, that's really easy for them to know where you are, and maybe they can just come and say, well, I've seen this task and maybe I can help. So communicating openly on that with that kind of tool is really good. As a matter of fact, Eclipse U protocol and Eclipse Tractus-X are really good examples of community building and attracting people. Now a few numbers about contributions. So contributing organizations, that's a histogram. So the average number of organizations contributing to projects across all Eclipse projects is 5, with the median at 4. So that means that if you're above 4, you're quite on the good side. But honestly, more organizations, the better. And the Eclipse project that have been there for years or decades, as an example, the Eclipse platform project for the Eclipse IDE, they have something like 40 organizations contributing to the projects. That's a sure factor of sustainability once again. And the number of contributors on projects per project is so average of 16, and the median is 7. If you have less than 7 contributors on your projects, so that's over a 2 years period time range. If you have less than 7 contributors, you're in the second half of Eclipse project with less contributors, let's say. Having more contributors is better for you, because that's they will take some of your work and they will take the project to the next step, and that's also good for the sustainability of the project, of course. I was talking about the Eclipse platform project. That's very interesting. It's been running for 21 years now, so that's quite a long-running project and an example of sustainability. And as you can see, a number of organizations are involved, and that's a good sign. Another interesting example, that's in the case of the Eclipse SDV working groups, software-defined vehicle. So this working group basically gathers a number of projects around automotive. And one of these projects is focused on providing use cases involving other SDV projects. So that promotes the projects, the SDV project that contributes to these use cases. It also shows to the users and potential contributors that's how these projects work together, and provides a demonstration, so a kind of real case to have these different projects running together. That's a very interesting, and that creates some dynamics, some very interesting dynamics within the working group. So obviously, that's something that you can do when you have a number of projects working together. But once again, that's a big success. A few words about automation. So there are a few ways to automate stuff. At the Eclipse Foundation, we provide Jenkins. You can use GitHub Actions, and in some cases, you can use GitLab runners. Why do you want to set up some automation? Well, so for newcomers, when they already have to learn about the architecture and technology of your project, if they can focus on architecture and technology rather than how to build and test and so on, at least in the beginning, it's a good thing. In the beginning, once again, it really eases the newcomers to write some code and get some result that they can see. As an example, you making people autonomous, as an example, on website generation. So if people fix a typo or add a news on the website, and there is some automatic website generation with a preview, that helps a lot. You will get contributions with a much higher quality, because people can actually test and preview their work. So if it doesn't work, they can take it back and fix that. And the contributions you get are much more, have an improved quality, obviously. Same thing for tests. It can be quite daunting to set up everything for the tests. So if you write some contribution, and so of course you will write a couple of tests for your specific use case. But say that the product is available for diverse architectures or languages, or you just cannot run the full test suite. Then it's very good for you and for the project if, when you push this new feature on a branch, if you can run the full test suite automatically, especially on diverse architecture. People are not going to buy a new machine just for this test. It also helps with the quick validation of features and big bug fixes. And generally speaking, well, so if you've done some software engineering, tests give confidence to people. It improves the robustness of the software development process. And once again, if people can see the results of their test without you looking at the contribution, they can fix it before you do so. Saves a lot of time for the maintainers. Now, one note of warning about automation. Automation is great, but at some point, people will need to understand the process. Automation is kind of a recipe. So you can tell whatever you want about how to build a website and so on. The source of truth is actually the Jenkins file or the GitHub action that actually builds the website. So at some point, people want to go into the automation mechanism and see how it's done and so on. And if it's overly complex, that doesn't help. So good processes are easy to grab and understand. A few examples of process automation. Eclipse uses Jenkins. You can have as many jobs as you want. You can have some quick jobs to just run some smoke tests. So you get a very quick answer about, does that seem to work? You can also have a longer job that runs the full test suites during the night, say. So if it takes 2 hours, you're not going to wait for 2 hours. You will do that during the night. And you can have a variety of jobs for different purposes that actually give a good landscape of where we are right now, what is still working and what is not anymore. And yeah, basically you can have the same for the GitHub Actions. We have an example with Eclipse Euro protocol build and the uprest component of this project, and that's the nightly build. So that's quite a long build. I think this one takes something like more than 2 hours, but it happens during the night, so that's just great. Once again, Eclipse Tractus-X, they provide this, so they have a number of components and they provide automatic testing of these components. So you have this page, always up to date, that lists all of the components and if they fail the tests or not. So you know instantly for the full list of components, if it's okay or if it's broken, if it needs some attention. And actually, when you click on one of these boxes, you get more details about what's going well and what not. And that gives visibility to people, both for users and for the contributors. Once again, all automated, big success. We're coming to the end of this presentation. A few more hints about our good practices. We know that open source is a lot more than code. Talking about the trademarks, sometimes we see a project abbreviating their name, and by removing the Eclipse project name, that's a mistake. You really need to use the Eclipse my project name everywhere. That's how we can actually defend your trademark if there is an issue one day. So please do that. Yes, security. So we didn't talk a lot about security during this presentation, but obviously you should take care of security and define processes and responsibilities. We've seen a number of supply chain attacks, quite elaborate supply chain attacks sometimes. Don't be the project that make everybody fall. So take security seriously. Obviously, documentation is important. As a side note, so having documentation is important. Making it easily accessible is even more important. So website and so on, people really need to quickly find the information they need. So yeah, getting started, user guide, contributing guidelines. Not also that you're encouraged to put the links to your documentation in the PMI. So the PMI is the project management infrastructure, and that's where the Eclipse Foundation stores every metadata information about your project. Maintainers have access, I believe, to maybe project leads have access to the PMI, and this should be up to date. You should provide the links to the getting started and documentation in the PMI, because that's a very good way for people to easily find it. I won't go into IP and licenses because Wayne presented that quite well. One last thing, the Eclipse Foundation offers a lot of services that you can and probably should leverage. As an example, security, especially if your project is largely used, but also if it's a bit used, you don't want to be a source of embarrassment for your users or projects using your projects. We have a number of recommendations from the Eclipse Foundation as a security team. We provide recommendations like defining responsibilities, defining a process for vulnerability management. We also provide security trainings for developers, so you can just get access to this, and they're great. In some specific cases, especially if it's a big and very used project, we can work on some salsa levels. And we can even have some security audits, both from the Eclipse Foundation security team, and we are working with the Open SSF Foundation. Regarding marketing, we can help you promote your events, promote your news. You can submit, so we have a service which is called the newsroom, where you can submit, excuse me, where you can submit the latest news about your project. Of course, it's moderated, but then it's a good way to have the Eclipse Foundation help you disseminate your work and events and communication. And for those who do not have yet a project, a logo for their projects, you can get one. Just ask. We can help with the creation of the logo. IP and licensing. Leverage Eclipse Dash. Eclipse Dash is a tool that is developed by the EMO team and by Wayne more specifically, that helps a lot analyzing the dependencies recursively and identifying inconsistencies in licenses. We have a long repository of curated material, so we already know for many different dependencies if they're good, if they're compatible or not with the licenses that we use. And if needed, if there is this new dependency or this new version of a dependency with a change in license, it's all automatically uploaded to the Eclipse Foundation GitLab, and we take care of creating this. So you really just have to run it from time to time, and then everything happens automatically, almost. That's how you take good care of your intellectual property and licensing. And you can get in touch with the EMO and intellectual property and licensing team through Matrix and GitLab and email. So it's quite easy to just get some quick answers. And as for the governance and best practices, the EMO team has what we call office hours. So I think it's monthly. And I wish Wayne you confirm or not but we have office hours where we just present something and answer any question you may have about processes, governance, whatever. And once again, you can get in touch with the EMO team quite easily on Matrix, GitLab, or email. And we also have some really good committers trainings. So to learn how to properly contribute to an Eclipse project, it's highly recommended that you have a look, and you have a look at these trainings, or you promote it to your committers, contributors, and so on. And that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Boris, for your presentation, and both of you, also Wayne. I don't know if you're there. Let's take a look if we have some questions on the chat, or if someone wants to ask. This is the moment. I cannot see any questions.
So I'll take this opportunity. Actually, I said this in the chat. If you do have questions, you don't have to ask now. If you come to office hours, that's what we do. And as Boris said, it's every month. And we generally do it on the second Thursday of every month. And we do advertise it on our committer channel.
All right. Thanks. So if there are no questions, I would like to thank you once again, both of you, for sharing your expertise and time with us. And now, as promised, we have a raffle giveaway for the attendees. So I will share my screen. I already uploaded the... wait. Oh, yeah. Now, yes. Thank you. I already uploaded the list. So, and we have 3 prizes. The first one is a free OCX ticket. And the second and third prize is a €50 on the OCX Swag Shop voucher. So let's see who will win this. The website, we randomly choose and select the winners that there are. Okay, so we have 3 winners, Ahmed, Marco, and Edil. I don't know if I hope you're there, but we'll get in touch soon with you so you can collect your gifts. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time today, and I hope to see you, everyone, tomorrow. And if you like this webinar, you can register to our next webinars tomorrow. You can find the link in the chat. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day.